Alright, today we're going to be talking about something interesting. Yeah, I know. A lot of people wanted my next just talk about video to be wasted potential Josuke. I know, but at the moment, I think this should be the main priority for my reviews for a non-what if video. It's still fresh in my memory, so I just want to get this over with and just cover it. I just want to say everything I just really want to say about the show because I completed it a little while ago, like a month ago, I believe, so while it's still fresh in my memory, I want to at least just say everything I thought about this show, or at least some of the stuff. I'm not going to say every small little minute detail, but I'm just going to say what I generally enjoyed about the show and generally what I disliked about the show. Because honestly, this is a very meh series. It's middle of the road. It's a mixed bag of a series for me. It's not quite honestly a perfect series, and it's not a bad series by all means. So, literally speaking, today we're going to be talking about Future Diary. And this was kind of a popular anime at one point, but then just got forgotten in time. And recently, a fan of mine, Dwayne Asher, suggested me to talk about the series. So he recommended me this series, and I decided to watch. And let's just say this was a very interesting series, to say the least. So buckle up because you're going to be interested into a very interesting series to me. So, folks, this is my Future Diary review. Hope you enjoy. But before I start this, I do want to say that this is going to contain Future Diary spoilers. So if you've not watched the series and if you want to watch the series, I would recommend basically just skipping on this review before you see anything else. If you want to watch my review and then watch Future Diary first, then go on ahead. That's if you want to do that. If you just want to watch it without knowing what Future Diary is, then okay. I guess I can just state that. And another thing is that this series is very, very dark. So, anyone who really can't handle. So, anyone who's super young or someone who's super uneasy about very gory and graphic stuff, uh, because this series does talk a lot about stuff such as sexual abuse, child murder, child death. It's a very child abuse is one of the things it talks about. So if you cannot really handle stuff like that, I would recommend not watching this because I'm really going to talk a decent amount about that kind of stuff. So viewer description is advised for this video. Well, with all that whole stuff going out of the way, let's just talk about Future Diary right now. So, first, before I talk about the characters or the things I like and dislike, I'll just talk about the show. By the way, I'm really only just going to talk about the characters here. I'm not really going to talk about the plot. It's like too much of the plot. So, the show is based. So, the show Future Diary or Maria Nikki or something like that. I don't remember. It is a Hunger Games kind of show where we're following the main protagonist Yuki as he's basically given a future diary, which is basically a phone that can read the future for him, which is pretty cool. But the only thing that's there is that it basically will say if there's a dead end, and if you cannot prevent your dead end from happening, you die. There's only a few people in this, so it's kind of like a killing game, like from Danganronpa, but kind of has more of a Hunger Games feel to it. And Yuki and the main heroine of the story, it's all up to them to basically survive, and for the winner who ends up winning will end up becoming God. Spoiler, Yuki wins because of course he's the protagonist. Off the bat, we'll just say my thoughts on every character. So I'm going to start off with Yuki first, the main character. And Yuki is an alright character. I'd say he gets a lot better over time. At first, I thought he was not really that good and kind of annoying. But despite that, I'd say he generally gets better as the series goes on, which I am okay with because I actually like when characters get better over time. Next character we have is Yuna, which I'll say my opinion on her for last. Uh, so after that is Deus Ex Machina, who's pretty boring. I don't know. I really didn't care much about his character. He was very underdeveloped. He was just there for the most part. Like, he was more or less just an excuse to have this show even exist. He was basically just an old man just wanting to retire his position as god to a bunch of characters. And he picked some of the weirdest jack-ups in the world just to try to become god of his universe. I'm sorry, but that's just the truth. But, yeah, he really doesn't do much, and he's just pretty boring for me. Next is Murumuru, and she's alright. Like, she's got, I guess, a cute design, but, like, that's kind of it to her. She's cute, I guess, to an extent. And she's a funny comic relief kind of character. I'd say my only real complaint with her is that she can get annoying. But, like, she's an alright character. I definitely prefer over Deus. I don't know. I didn't really like the whole twist villain thing. Like her working with Yuna to become like a twist villain or something. But like, minus from that, she was an alright character for the most part. I'd say, I think she could have definitely been written better, but, eh. So, the next character is Minini Yuryu. I can't pronounce that name. Sorry. But I'm gonna just call her number 9. And number 9 is actually pretty cool. I actually thought she was a pretty cool character. I'm not gonna lie. I think she's actually a pretty cool character. Like, she's pretty funny moments, but she's actually really cool. I kind of like her character, basically just being a terrorist. And I actually do really enjoy her character. As she's a pretty fun character. I actually feel like she is one of my favorites to come from the show. And I generally just find her as a very entertaining character for the most part. My only real complaints are at the ending with her, and I really just didn't like how she just dies but then just comes back at the end. I don't know. To be honest, I'm not really a big fan of the trope period where a character dies and then just gets brought back at the end. It's a very anticlimactic trope, especially if the character ends up dying again, so it feels kind of just pointless there for me. But minus from really that, I think she's an alright character for me. I think she could have been written better, not gonna lie. But I would say that I think she's alright. Think there could have been more to her character, but minus from that, I'd say she's actually just kind of there. She's fun. The next two characters are Yuki's mom and dad. So, Yuki's mom, I'll go with her first. She's fine. I actually think she has a nice design. I think she's a pretty good character. To be honest, I'm not a big fan of her character. She doesn't really get much screen time and really not much time for me to care about her. But, like, minus from that, I think she's an okay character. I'd say my only real complaint is that she really doesn't just get too much time to be fleshed out. But minus from that, I actually do like her. She's actually a pretty good character. I actually really like her design, and she's just pretty cool. Yuki's dad is next, and honestly, I wasn't really a big fan of him. He was just too unlikable. I kind of found it funny enough that we actually ended up having a character whose dad is just straight up willing to abandon their own child in danger. He straight up leaves Yuki to die, like, on 2 separate occasions. And not only that, but he just straight up kills his own wife. Like, straight up. My only real complaint is that he kind of just is just too unlikable at the end. I don't know, I just never really like him. He's just too unlikable. He never really just gets a chance to redeem himself. Like, I get he's gonna turn himself in, but like, geez, it's not really gonna do much. He's pretty unlikable. He left Yuki to die on two different occasions, and he was straight up willing to kill his own and straight up killed his own wife. So I'm really just a little just messed up for me. But minus from that, he's a fine character, I guess. The next character is Hiyama, who's basically Yuki's teacher while also being a serial killer. Uh, Nothing really much. He was more or less just Yuki's first obstacle, I guess. That was, I guess, an alright fight. He was just a fine character. Think he could have had more screen time. I mean, then again, he was kind of to the example death of the story, and we all need those example deaths. But yeah, I think he was an okay character. Just really there for an example death. And yeah, after him, we get Tsubaki. Tsubaki is a very interesting character because she's a cult leader. Yeah, she's pretty interesting as a character, and she's basically just screwed up. Which, I mean, when you really understand why her parents died when she was a kid and she was sexually abused, like, I mean, you'd probably be mentally screwed in the head if you were in her position too. But minus from that, I actually thought she was a pretty cool character. I actually like the idea that her future diary was actually a scroll and not a phone. I think she has a really nice design. I'd say she definitely could have done more, and and part of me does kind of wish she did become an ally. But then again, I actually liked her as a villain too. I'd say, for the most part, she's a very entertaining character for me. And I would have said that she could have definitely done more in the story. But for what she does do, I'd say she does a pretty good job with. After that is Hojo, who is a literal kid. Yep, a kid is fighting for the right to become a god. Of course, right? Because it's anime. Uh, Generally speaking, I like the whole thing of a kid who's like, oh, he's super cutesy, but in all actuality, they're like a bloodthirsty psychopath. I don't know what it is about that trope, but I just really enjoy it. It's actually a pretty funny trope to me, and I actually did find his character. He had a cute design, and I just find him very funny. I kind of just like the entire thing where he just straight up masterminds to kill Yuno and Yuki, and I ironically was actually rooting for him to beat Yuki and Yuno. Yes, I hated Yuno that badly. I wanted her to die to a kid. Literally speaking, minus from that, I really can't say much about him except that his arc was pretty fun. I thought he was a pretty funny character, and I think he was actually pretty good. After this is Kamado, and Kamado is basically just a nice woman who owns an orphanage. That's really her character. I mean, she's a nice character, but like, we really don't get much of her character. Honestly, her death was pretty anticlimactic in my opinion. Minus from that, she's all right. I think she has a pretty anticlimactic death in my opinion, but I think she actually has a pretty like all right character. I really think we could have gotten more screen time of her. I'd say even as the fact that she was one of the final three characters left at the end, I think she could have at least done more in the story and got more screen time. But minus from that, I think she was actually a pretty fine character. I think that if they did do her more screen time, then maybe I would have cared more about her. Uh, After that, we end up getting one of my favorite characters, Keigo. And Keigo is actually really cool. He's basically this police officer who honestly just starts off as the mentor, as kind of like a mentor figure to Yuki and Yuno. And to be honest, he's a really likable character, and you just think he's a pretty cool dude. And then he later is revealed to want to kill them. Now his reasoning for killing them is because he wants to become God so he could save his own son who's dying from a disease. So you're basically just kind of actually rooting for him here. And I actually was actually rooting for him over Yuki and Yuno. No surprise there. I thought he was actually a pretty cool character. I actually find him very fun. And I actually thought he was a really just entertaining character overall. I'd say for the most part, I think they could have... I don't really have any complaints with them. I'm a little disappointed that he ended up becoming a villain, but minus from that, I think he's pretty cool. After that is Hirosuke. Hirosaki. I don't really know how to pronounce the name. Hirosake or something like that. Uh, this dude generally could just get a waste of potential video. I could generally just make a waste of potential on this dude because this dude was just so cool when he was first introduced. I really liked his design. I liked the outfit he had. I liked the whole justice thing. And then he just gets killed. His very anticlimactic death. And I honestly wish we got to see him more. Deserved more screen time. Would have been a really cool character to see more around. More as like an anti-hero or more of a comedic villain to go against. I actually really found him a pretty fun character. Kind of wish we got him around for at least one or two more arcs before he died. Minus from that, that's my only real complaint with him. I wish we got to see him more. He is a fun character and he's one of my favorites as well. After this is John, and he honestly is just not that interesting of a villain. Like, before we get to the ending, he's more of the end game final boss before we get to everything else that happens. And he is such a boring villain. I he feels more like a mustache twirling cartoon villain. That's how he feels to me. He doesn't really feel like an actual villain. He kind of just feels like a villain stereotype, the typical cartoon villain who just evilly swirls around his mustache and talking about his evil plans and him how he's gonna rule the world and all that. But yeah, mine from that. There's really not much about his character. I just didn't really like him. He was really boring as a character. After that is Pompadour dude and his smoking hot girlfriend. I forgot their names, so I'm just gonna refer to them as that for now. And they are honestly up there as some of my favorites too. Pompadour haired dude, insert your Mondo and Josuke jokes here, by the way. He's actually pretty cool. And I actually liked his girlfriend too. And they actually really have a nice relationship with them actually, knowing each other since childhood. And it's actually kind of cute and wholesome. And I actually think the whole dynamic with Yuki and Yuno was actually pretty good. Only complaint is that they picked the literal worst arc to have it come straight after. But minus from that, I actually did enjoy their characters a lot. And I'd say I kind of wish we got to see more of them. And I'd say I was actually kind of rooting for them to win as well. Of course I was. Up next, we end up having I'm looking for his name. I don't really remember these names too well. Yeah, I really can't pronounce his name. Dog Dude. I'm calling him that because he owns dogs. He had a cool design. I guess he was fine. At first, like, I watched the show English dub. I like to watch most of my anime English dub in most case scenarios. But this might have just been me. But I actually thought he was voiced by the guy who did Joseph from parts 3 and 4 of JoJo. I don't know if that was just me watching that, but he just sounded a lot like him. I would show a clip, but I don't want to get copyright striked, so yeah. I think he's a fun character. I think I would have liked to see more of him. He just gets killed off too soon, and we really didn't even get to see much screen time of him, even in his own personal arc. It was more of just his daughter doing the fights, but that's just him. And speaking of his daughter, here's his daughter Hinata. Hinata or Hina or Hinata, whatever you want to call her. She's actually an okay character. I feel like she actually had potential to be a good love interest for Yuki, in my honest opinion. As she's actually normal, unlike certain characters. But I actually do really enjoy her character. She's pretty fun, she's nice, I actually think she has a nice design. I think her and Yuki generally could have actually been a nice couple, actually, had they actually went that route. Kinda sucks they didn't, but I actually think she could have been a better love interest for Yuki by the ending of the story, in my honest opinion. Up next is her friend who's and her character is just she's a simp for her. She's a simp for Hinata. I'm not making this up. She's literally just a simp for Hinata. That's literally just her entire personality. She just stalks and simps for her, and that's literally her in a nutshell. She's your typical simp anime girl. She's that typical girl who just fangirls over a certain guy or girl. I really wasn't a fan of her, and she just really wasn't catching my interest, to be honest. But yeah, she was just pretty boring. Yeah, there's really nothing much I could say minus from that. Next is Kosuke. And Kosuke, he's actually fine. What call him one of my... I'd say he's probably one of my favorites from the show, but I'm not a big fan of him. I think he was actually kind of fine. I actually think he goes through a decent character arc from going to a coward to actually being willing to fight back. Pretty basic arc, I know, but I think he still goes through a decent arc. He's pretty funny for the most part. I kind of wish he did get to interact more with some of the other characters. To be fair, I think all of Yuki's friends really deserved more screen time. That's a complaint I really had with the show. But minus from that, I actually thought he was an okay character. After that is Nishima. And Nishima is cool. He is a police officer too, but he's not a villain, so like he's actually a nice dude. My only problem is that he literally just pulls an Anasui and forces number 9 to marry him. I'm not making this up. He straight up grabs a wedding ring and tries slipping it on her hand. And it's even worse in the Anasui case, because I'd say it's probably not as bad, actually. I don't know which is worse. Being forced into a marriage while you're asleep, or being forced into a marriage when you're awake and actually have a full consciousness. Tell me what you think in the comments below. But straight up, it's a terrible thing what he tried to do. He forced her to a marriage. I mean, granted, that she did have a crush on him, but it's still horrible. If I had a crush on a girl, if a girl had a crush on me, the last thing I want to do is just slip a ring on it off the bat. That's just going to scare her. That's only my real complaint with him. Minus from that, I think he was a fine character. I think there was some entertainment from him. And, yeah, those are a lot of the characters, except for 2 who I saved. One I saved, which is my favorite from the show, and one which was my least favorite. My favorite, Akase. Akase is definitely the best character from the show. He carried this show for me, and I might go as far as to call him one of my favorite anime characters in all of anime. The dude straight up starts off very interesting, and you kind of get the feeling that maybe this dude's going to be a future diary user or something, because you kind of get that feeling from him that he's going to own a future diary. But no, he just straight up outsmarts future diary users. He's just straight up a smart dude. And then we later get revealed why he is, because he was sent by Deus from the big brain heavens or something. So he was basically God's gift or something. You know, the whole you're God's gift thing. He was literally God's gift. And once he found that out, Deus wanted to kill him, only for Akase to straight up say, "Nope, I'm not doing that." Pull an Uno reverse card and straight up steal John's diary and come back from the dead, straight up to fight off Yuno and save Yuki. And after all the times of Yuno and Yuki just having thousands of makeout sessions, just to spite her, Akase, like, also loving her, Akase straight up kisses Yuki in front of Yuno. Like, straight up, this dude had balls of steel to steal Yuno's guy in front of her. And not only that, but when the dude straight up got slit in the throat, the only thing he could try to do was using out his bleed out moment to try and reveal Yuno's identity. And not only that, but got beheaded and was still walking just to reveal to Yuki that Yuno is not even the real deal. Literally speaking, Akase is my favorite character to come from the show, and easily up there is one of my favorite anime characters of all times. I really don't think you could really change that up. He literally has to be one of, if not the most interesting characters in all of just anime. But, yeah, we just talked about a character I really love. Let's talk about a character I hate. Yuno. Before I say this, I'm going to say this. Yuno might have to be the worst anime character I have ever seen in my time of watching anime. Yes, worse than Mikey from Tokyo Revengers final arcs. And yes, Worse than Kyoko Kirigiri from Danganronpa. Yuno is literally that bad. And if you want an example, imagine throwing Yukiko's clinginess toward Koichi, Anasui's clinginess toward Jolene, and Soda's clinginess to Sonia into a blender, and then you have Hyoko, or have any disrespectful anime character in the world, pee in it because of their selfishness. That's you know what? I think Yuno is even worse than that. Yuno is the worst character from this show and the worst anime character I have ever witnessed in all of anime. She straight up kidnaps Yuki. Straight up kidnaps him. And after Yuki straight up tells her off, the next arc, Yuno is the victim. And Yuki's the bad guy for not returning her love back. Seriously, after everything that he's went through. Everyone treats him as the bad guy. Granted, I know they didn't know anything about that. But still, the fact that he didn't just tell them. If Yuki just told them the truth, then I think they would have definitely understood why he didn't care about Yuno at that very moment. And not only that, but Yuno shows no remorse toward anyone else. Those four characters, at least I can name that they did show remorse toward something. Hiyoko is straight up selfish. She doesn't care about anyone else but herself. But despite that, when Fuyuhiko straight up kills himself, she straight up feels remorse and straight up feels guilty about it. Literally, Anasui straight up was willing to die so the universe wouldn't get resetted by Pucci. The same guy who straight up just stood there and just let Foo Fighters get electrocuted because she wasn't Jolene. He was literally willing to sacrifice himself for the entire world. Basically speaking, he actually put Elise through more character development than Yuno ever did. Yuno's entire character doesn't even have a tragic backstory. You could all say, oh no, she had a tragic backstory. At least there's some justification. Literally speaking, newsflash, she murdered her parents. And not only that, but once it was revealed, her parents were actually loving. They cared about her. Once they were given the chance, they found out what happened and they snuggled with her. In the ending they did, like during the whole universe reset thing, because Future Diary had its own universe reset. Literally speaking, Dio definitely is a better written character. A better written character with a childhood like this. Dio was abused by so many people because he was poor, because he was a peasant. His father was a drunk alcoholic man who abused him, and Dio spit on his grave because he not only did that, but he killed his mother. Dio never cared about anyone but himself, and it makes sense because Dio is made to be an unlikable character. But he still has sympathy toward him because he grew up in a rough childhood. Dio is a good character because of that. He is literally just a better version of Yuno. Heck, Yukiko is more interesting than Yuno. She straight up does the same thing with Koichi. She kidnaps him and holds him hostage. But, unlike Yuno, Yukiko, during the Cinderella arc, is willing to throw away her selfishness and is straight up willing to change her life just so she can win the love over of Koichi. She was willing to make that change just to become a better person. Yuno straight up becomes God and constantly resets everything just so she can keep being with Yuki. And not only that, but she's willing to get other people in trouble or get other people hurt or killed because of her selfishness. She is that selfish. The only thing she cares about is Yuki. And 24/7, she thinks about Yuki all the time. She straight up was gonna murder him if given the chance. I'm straight up not making this. She murdered him and she would have probably gone away with it. A harmless scene where like years before the show begun, Yuki said something along the lines of, maybe I'll marry you. And Yuno took it to heart and become a psychopath. Oh, it gets worse. At the ending, Yuno kills herself in front of Yuki after Yuki finally loved her. And you know what happened? She ended the world. Her selfishness ended the world. She was so selfish about Yuki, she was willing to straight up kill herself. And it honestly caused more harm in the long term. Because Yuki is too depressed to do anything, the world was never brought back, and now everyone is depressed. Because Yuki just straight up is now mentally dead inside because Yuno doesn't care about him. Yuno caused that much harm. She is abusive. She abused Yuki. She straight up kidnapped Yuki, and she was straight up willing to kill Yuki. She is a terrible character. She is the most unlikable character. And even though she's made to be an ally or a likable character, she's unlikable. She's intolerable. I can't stand her character. There's no reason to care about her. She never goes through any significant change. There is no reason to straight up like her as a character whatsoever. Or you want to say, oh, but she's cute. Oh, she has a nice, cute design. Well, you know what? I'll say this. I like characters with ugly designs. I could actually stand characters who have ugly, awful designs. Heck, there are characters there are characters that are out there who I think have really cool designs, but I don't really like them too much. But unlike Yuno, I could actually have positives about those characters. Yuno has literally no positives. She is a generic design. She's a freaking yandere. Probably one of the worst anime tropes in all of anime history. She's selfish. She is the reason the world is destroyed. She doesn't care about anyone else but Yuki and herself. And she straight up is willing to get anyone else harmed if it meant that Yuki would be her king. She is literally the worst character in all of anime. She's selfish. She doesn't care about anyone but herself. She's caused so much harm to everything. It's her fault that everything bad happens in Future Diary. It's literally her fault. She literally ruined the entire series because Yuki, someone who probably wasn't even worthy enough to become God, ends up becoming God because she is a simp. That is no joke. She is a simp. That is literally her character. Everyone like to poke fun, like, oh, look at that guy's a simp. That guy's a simp, haha. At least those characters I named off that were simps, at least there's some redeeming qualities. At least they were helpful in some way. At least they were willing to straight up do something that was caring. Yuno is just the worst character of them all. She is the worst anime character. Is there characters out there that's worse? Probably. But Yuno is from any anime I've seen, any video game, any media, Yuno is the worst character. And there is nothing you can do to change that for me. So, that's my review of Future Diary. Yeah, the show was mid. Honestly, I'll say this. It had a really good plot, really good premise. I actually thought the premise was pretty cool. Not gonna lie, that glued me in. The characters, hit or miss. I like some characters, just like some. But honestly, ending really killed the show for me. Okay, like Akase carried most of the show, but after he died, I kind of lost interest. Yuno really ruined the show. She was never a good character to begin with, and constantly kept getting worse and worse as the series went on. And also, the ending just really wasn't that good. If anything, I think this ending is actually worse than JoJo Stone Ocean. I mean, it's hard to say. I think they're both equally as bad. In the case of Stone Ocean, in the case of Future Diary, its ending just straight up ruins anything by making Yuno come off as so selfish that she's straight up willing to ruin the entire world. But in the case of Stone Ocean, I still think its ending sucked because it's a long-running series, and they only brought back like one character, and all the deaths were pretty anticlimactic. So honestly, this is basically just the Stone Ocean ending, but if it was just with a bunch of characters that you really had no attachment toward. Only Number 9 really got a happy ending at the end, but like realistically speaking, that was kind of it. The show is just not really that, and the show had an interesting premise. I don't know if I'd ever do a what if on it. That Yuno rant really killed my throat, not gonna lie. So I'll just cut it off here in the video. First ever time doing another anime review from a different anime. Maybe I'll talk about Future Diary some other time. I don't know, probably not. Maybe some occasional references. Maybe some community meme post, of course. Maybe a Virgin Yuno vs. Chad Akase meme. Virgin Yuno vs. Chad Anasui. Virgin Yuno vs. Chad Yukiko. I don't know. I'll make all those memes eventually. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.